So in lesson number 4, we're going to jump back into the arena, and we're going to talk about how this metaphor will help us understand some of the challenges around being brave, around showing up and being seen in our lives. We've already talked a little bit about the two most important seats in the arena, empathy and self-compassion. But in this lesson, I want to jump into the seats that really present the biggest barrier and challenge to us being brave. Every time you walk into the arena, you're confronted with this. I don't care who you are or what your arena is. Scarcity, shame, comparison, and shame's friend all have season tickets to your arena. These are the folks that are going to show up every time we try something new, every time we put ourselves out there, every time we brave uncertainty and risk and emotional exposure. These folks are there. And there are some people who will tell you the best thing to do is scream and yell and tell them to get out and go away, but I don't see any evidence in the research that supports that. What we really need to do is look at the folks in these seats and look at these seats and say, I see you. I get that you're going to be here every time I try to do something brave, every time I try to do something new, awkward, uncomfortable, that I think is brave. You're going to show up. And that's okay, but I'm going to do this anyway. That's the only really, it's almost accepting, understanding, and moving through. And that's what we're going to do in lesson 4. We're going to learn how to recognize shame, recognize scarcity, understand how comparison really gets into our heads when we're trying to be brave, and we're going to move through it. And so you'll see a series, the lessons are going to be divided into several videos because we have a lot of work to do in this lesson. So let's get started and let's just jump right in here. What do these mean? Scarcity. You know, I started this research 6 months before 9/11, and I've watched over the last dozen years how shame and fear have really run roughshod over our families, our communities, and our organizations. I've watched the conversation turn to what is absolutely scarcity culture. What am I supposed to be afraid of today, and whose fault is it? When those questions dominate cultural conversation and discourse, whether it's in your home, in your office, or in the broader community, you know that you're finding yourself smack dab in the middle of scarcity. Scarcity is all about there's not enough. There's not enough. Shame is very related to scarcity, and shame is I'm not enough. And we're going to really unpack shame later in the lesson, so I'm going to leave you with this. Shame drives 2 primary tapes: never good enough and who do you think you are? So you're getting ready to do something brave, and you've got the gremlin, I call shame the gremlin, you've got the gremlin in your ear that says, you're not good enough to do that. What are you thinking? You're really going to say, I love you first in this relationship? You really think she cares about you that much? And then once you get up the courage to do it, the other side of shame is, oh, who do you think you are? Where I'm from, they call that getting too big for your britches. It's a very painful, universal cultural message about don't get too confident. Stay small, stay quiet, don't ask for what you need, don't try new things, hide out in your own life. But what I think you and I both know is there's a huge, huge cost to hiding out in our own lives that starts with resentment and grief, exhaustion. So shame is a formidable issue in the arena. Comparison, oh man. Comparison is the absolute thief of happiness. Have you ever had one of those moments, I have them all the time, where you're feeling really good about something and then all of a sudden you take your focus out of your lane and start looking at what other people are doing and how they're doing and what's going on in their lives? Comparison is one of the most dangerous things we engage in, and it's a function of scarcity and shame. It is, how am I doing compared to these other people? And the thing we always have to keep in mind when we're trying to be brave and trying to be daring is that we're normally comparing our real selves next to people's photoshopped and edited lives. It's one of the most dangerous things we face in the arena. We're going to unpack some of these, but I want to give you a big, fuller picture of what we're up against. So we walk in the arena We're going to try something new. Maybe it's a hard conversation. Maybe it's saying I love you first. Maybe it is that first date after your divorce. Maybe it is applying for a new job. Maybe it's going back to school. We're going to run into these. You know, in another way that comparison shows up in our lives is perfectionism. And one of my favorite quotes is, when shame is driving, perfectionism is always riding shotgun. In fact, the best way to think about perfectionism really is it's a function of shame. It's just a form of shame. It's not healthy striving. It's not trying to do our best. Healthy striving is very internally motivated. It's motivated by, here's what I want to achieve. Here are my goals. Perfectionism is driven by one thing and one thing only. What will people think? And so I call perfectionism the 20-ton shield. We carry it around with this mindset. If I live, love, look, and work perfectly, I can avoid, minimize shame, blame, and judgment. And the truth is we can't. But that huge 20-ton shield that we carry around, one, it's exhausting, and two, it keeps us from being seen by people. And we're here to do the work of being seen. The next part of this lesson is a really tough lesson that we need to talk about. And I think no matter where you are in the world, we are absolutely neck high drowning in these issues. And if we don't have these conversations, we're not going to ever move through these issues. And that is about how the arena is set up and how being brave is a universal experience. But if we don't talk honestly about how things like gender, class, race, experience, ability, orientation affect our experiences of being brave, then we're really not daring greatly. So here's what I want to do. I want to walk you in and kind of explain this crazy slide to you, because this is an important conversation. So in the arena, let me tell you this. If I walk in, and I'm just going to be really honest, if I walk into the arena, if I try to do something brave, when I walk in, there's a whole bunch of folks rooting for me, because there's a whole bunch of folks normally in this arena that look just like me. They identify with my race, they identify with my education, they identify with the fact that, you know, I'm Judeo-Christian, they identify with a lot of things. Now, maybe not gender, but there are a lot of people cheering for me. There are some folks who, when I walk in the arena, will question my ability simply because I'm a woman. And if you doubt the truth of that, we need to go back to perspective taking as a skill of empathy, because that is absolutely my experience. These are realities, and if we don't face them, we will never change them. So when we walk into the arena, understand that race, class, ability, all of these areas make a difference. Every arena, and I don't know about you, but I'm a big sports person, so I go to a lot of sporting events, has box seats. And these are the seats that hold the people that built the arena to benefit the people who are in the box seats. But let me tell you about the danger of the box seats. Let me be really honest. In the US culture, that would be white, male, educated, straight, Judeo-Christian. But let me tell you about the struggle, and let me tell you about the Faustian bargain of the box seats. How hard do you think it is to show up and be brave and risk failure when perfection is expected of you? This seems like a great place to be, but in terms of vulnerability, number one shame trigger for men, appearance of weakness. Number one shame trigger for women, still, I pray one day I won't have to say this because I've been saying it for 15 years and knowing it for 30, appearance and body image. On this part of the arena, you have the cheap seats, and we've made reference to the cheap seats before. This is filled with people who will never once risk what it means to show up and be brave and put yourself out there, but are very quick to throw out mean-spirited comments, anonymous comments, criticisms, judgments, personal attacks. So the arena is a dicey place, but it's only dicey if you don't understand it and you don't understand what to expect, which is why I wanted to walk you through. So let me give you an example of how this has been helpful for me in my life. Sometimes when I'm trying to be brave and I'm trying to put myself out there, especially for me in public, I find myself hustling for the box seats. I find myself trying to win over approval of the people who I believe set the rules. I perform, I please, I prove myself, instead of looking straight ahead at the two most important seats, which are empathy and self-compassion, and really doing what I believe. Understand that it's not the same experience for every one of us to show up and be brave. That in the very deepest part of us, it is the same. But in terms of what we're up against around issues like race and gender, it's a struggle. And this is where we have to be mindful and really practice empathy when we hear people's stories. When someone says, man, I'm really nervous about asking for this raise. Instead of saying, oh my God, that's not a big deal, just ask for it, you totally deserve it. To look at that person and say, tell me what's going on. What are you feeling about it? Because we don't know what that arena looks like or feels like for them. And unfortunately, unlike in this great graphic, it's not all marked off like this with big circles and boxes, and it's not graphically designed like this. Sometimes the criticism comes from places that we least expect it. But to know the arena is a complex place where we're trying to do good work. And we need to be learners, not knowers, about other people's experiences in here. Critically important to Daring Greatly.